Guys, before we start, thank you so much. We're already monetized, so soon I'll make a video about my first YouTube payment and stupid stuff like that. Gradually, we'll get a microphone, laptop, or whatever's needed to improve video quality. Thanks again for everything. Let's begin. What's up? How are you all? I'm Ismail Chi, and today let's talk about this beautiful plant, Pothos or Devil's Ivy. Look how big it is. But yeah, I wanted to start making these kinds of videos again because before I talked about animals, I used to talk about plants. And well, it's my channel, I talk about whatever I want here, and I just wanted to start with this plant because it's probably the easiest one to take care of and the one everyone knows. So, let's get started with the substrate. Hi, this is Ismail from the future. Spoiler, we're not starting with the substrate. Ismail from the past will introduce another topic next. First, this beautiful plant is invasive in several areas. This can mean two things. The first is that there are no competitors, or the second is that the darn thing adapts really well. And that's the case, right? That's the reason why it's great for beginners if you're just starting out with, well, indoor plants, right? If you're just getting into this hobby, I highly recommend it. There are many types. That's the most common. It cost me about 200 pesos. You can find it at any nursery, but there are also neon green, variegated, marble queen, golden, satin, and more. No, here I'm going to show you plenty of photos so you can see that there's a wide selection. So you can start according to your budget, your needs, and whatever you want, right? You could choose something exotic like the satin, or something more ordinary like mine. Let's start with the substrate. What do I need? Use nursery soil for this plant. You don't need anything special. Just plant it and use nursery substrate. I'm going to suggest something else. Add perlite or agrolite for improved drainage. What does better drainage mean? It means that when you water the pot, the water quickly goes through the pot to the roots and then drains out through the drainage hole, which we'll talk about a little later. This is crucial to prevent stagnant water and root rot, which could kill your plant. This is a pretty common problem, which we'll address a little later, but it can be avoided with some very simple steps. Let's move on to humidity and watering, and I'll be honest with you, all the points about this plant are going to be super simple. Why? You'll see in a moment. Let's start with humidity. I live in Mexicali, it's 50 degrees here, we're dying every time we go outside, our backsides are all sweaty and it's just horrible. That means the environment is always super dry, and just look at this. This plant is really beautiful. It grows several meters a year and doesn't need a humid environment, but does that mean it thrives in this kind of environment? Well, yes and no. Yes, because it isn't affected by humidity. In fact, placing it in a very humid environment, like 70% humidity in terrariums, helps it grow even better, so provide humidity if possible. If you live in Chiapas, which is super humid, that's great. It will grow much more there than here, I assure you. But anyway, if you live in Sonora, which is the hottest and driest place in all of Mexico, don't worry, this plant will endure. Watering is very simple, and I'm going to give you my golden rule, my revealed secrets. When you're going to water, first of all, stick your finger into the substrate, into the soil. Don't worry if you have nails or a manicure, I'm sorry, but that's my golden rule. Stick your finger in, and if the substrate is dry, water it. It's that simple. If you feel it's moist or soaked, don't water. It's that simple, that easy, and for the whole family. Keep the season of the year in mind. Since it's summer, you'll water more frequently. I water it about once a week and it's perfect. But when it's winter, you'll water once every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, even depending on how well your substrate retains moisture. By the way, for me the key is not to water too often, once a week, once every 2 weeks. But when you do water it thoroughly, soak the plant, but obviously you need to have good drainage always so the water doesn't get stuck. That's very important. And about holes. Let's discuss pots. What kind of pot do I need? I mentioned drainage holes and now I'll show them to you. In this case, this hanging pot has 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are very important, and let me tell you why. The thing about drainage holes is actually very well known, pretty simple if you know about plants, but we all start out knowing nothing, and I'm here to teach you. Basically, if your pot doesn't have holes at the bottom, the water won't be able to drain and your roots will rot. Literally, the roots will turn black instead of yellow, and then the stems will get mushy and full of water. Why? Because there's no release of water. It's very important that those holes are at the bottom so that when you water, the water can pass through and flow. But going back to the topic of pots, now that we know it's very important to have drainage holes, it can really be any type of pot. It can be plastic, clay, or terracotta. I also forgot to tell you, but it can also be propagated in water. It's very easy to propagate. I'll show you how in a moment, but just look at these voluptuous roots and these giant leaves. Keep that in mind. It's a very simple and low maintenance way to propagate. Moving on to one of the last points, let's talk about lighting. This is very easy to get into. It doesn't need much light. It can be in a room with very little light or even a room with fairly moderate light. What I won't recommend is putting it in a place where it gets direct sunlight, since these are quite susceptible to getting burned. So as long as you don't put it directly in a window like you would with a cactus or a succulent, you'll be just fine. Now then, how do you propagate this beautiful plant? Basically, we have our plant. We're going to grab a fairly long stem and make some cuts. Where should the cuts be made? Here, look, we're going to grab our scissors, which are pretty rusty by the way. I need new ones. Let's grab here so you can see well. Can you see here? 1 and 2 here. I want you to pay close attention to where I cut. I cut exactly, here's the leaf and then here's the stem on both ends. From here, roots are going to come out of these two parts, and also from here, if you look at these little parts here, roots will also come out. We'll put them in water and in a few days new roots will form. Then you can transplant them into a new pot. Very simple. Lastly, let's talk about fertilization. How often do I have to do it? You really don't have to fertilize. If you don't, nothing will happen. It'll keep growing like crazy because this plant is very adaptable, like I mentioned before, but it never hurts to give it a little help. You can fertilize once or twice a year in spring or summer, which is when this plant is at its peak and already growing like crazy. To sum up, don't overwater. Water once a week or when the soil is dry. Any pot works as long as it has a drainage hole at the bottom, preventing water from getting trapped and roots from rotting. Keep in low or medium light, avoiding direct sun to prevent burning. Propagation is easy in water or soil. And well, I think that's all. If you have questions or want me to review another plant or a specific animal and discuss its care, let me know in the comments. And that's all. Remember to follow me and love nature. By the way, I won't see you for about 10 days or maybe even longer because I'm going on vacation. I'm going to visit Mexico for the first time. I'm from Baja California. I've been to the airport for a connecting flight but never visited the city. I hope it's a good experience. And well, that's it. I'll see you in a few days. Goodbye.